Good afternoon. Happy Thanksgiving. What I want to do is intersperse the videos I've been making, which is how we are living in Novueval times. We're kind of in the middle of the beginning of this. My feeling is, and this is given the MIT study from 1972 that says on or by 2040, we're going to have widespread societal collapse. And beyond that, there is a graph floating around out there. It's one of four that are frequently cited, but this is BAU2, business as usual 2, which shows the population going up and then going down. The peak somewhere around 2036. It's impossible to know for sure because they've got 2000, they've got 2050, and it's somewhere in between there. My money is on October 3rd, 2036 in the early afternoon. Just a guess, but if I'm right, whoa. Uh, Here's the thing. There are a number of factors involved, much of which we're seeing, that just shows how we are on a downward spiral. And, well, as per the name of the graph, the title of the graph, business as usual. There are a whole bunch of things that we could do to switch it up. We're not going to. The capitalists don't want to give up their capitalism, at least the form of capitalism they're practicing, which is just whacked. I call it kafoa eswek. The carnival freak show of an economic system we euphemistically call capitalism, because it's not truly capitalism. As a matter of fact, a very almost insignificant part of what we do here in this country is really capitalism. But the form of capitalism that we're practicing is just insane and is going to destroy itself. We're already seeing. We're already seeing. Damn that light! See, that's just an indication. No, I think it's a bad ballast, but I'm getting out of here in a week, so it's not worth looking into. In any event, what we're seeing in terms of empty shelves, in terms of the supply chain breaking down, people not wanting to work, which they're blaming on laziness and the government giving people money, which the unemployment, the extended unemployment has run out. All the government subsidies, whatever you want to call it, to everyday normal people are gone. Of course, the rich are still getting all kinds of perks. They always do, and that's the way they like it, but that's part of what's going to destroy us. But I went over all of that in the last video. You can watch that. Here, and what I'm going to do from now on, I'm going to go over the factors that I believe are the most significant ones in terms of what is leading to our downfall. And I think we, the states, the United States, are going to suffer the most because we've had it the best for quite a while now, and we're soft. When hard times come, it's going to be very painful. But this is what I want to talk about. I want to intersperse the videos that I discuss what I think is going bad, is rotten and corrupt and starting to fall apart and leading to what we're going to be dealing with in the future, with what we as individuals and communities can do about it so it's not so bad. And I think right off the bat, a part of that is acceptance. And also the knowledge that I and everyone who thinks like me, we could be wrong. Things could be fixed and life could go on like it was back in the 90s and 80s and 70s and 60s, and not just for the privileged, but for everybody. We're all equal. The middle class is growing. Politics has straightened itself out and is not that cluster mess that it is now. Yeah, what are the chances of that happening? Us coming up with innovative ways to fix the environmental damage that we've done. I'm not going to go through the list of things that would have to change, in my opinion, for things to go back to anything like normal. I don't think it's going to happen. So I think this set of circumstances that in my view is only going to get worse, and even if it doesn't just everything fall off the cliff like you see in a lot of movies and a lot of prepper videos and stuff like that, it's going to be a slow decline. So as we see things getting worse, you can take one of two routes. You can endeavor to better yourself and bring people into a community that thinks like you and tries to better their mode of living, giving the harder times, or you can be one of the panic stricken, hysterical idiots that just make things even worse for everybody else. And we're already starting to see plenty of that now. And that's part of the problem too. Even as things are getting worse, if that weren't bad enough, the people who don't know how to respond to a very discouraging, hard situation are just going to make things worse for everybody else. We're starting to see a lot of that. And granted, a lot of that also is not just man on the street doing stupid things. A lot of that is social media and, well, all the talking heads. I mean, get on any channel, left or right, and they have answers for everything, but also they have problems for everything. And the solutions that they tend to foster are just more business as usual. There is get on any channel, left or right, and none of them are going to say the political system right now is just totally bonkers. We need to expand democracy. We need more than two parties. They don't say that. What they say is those guys are wrong. If they would just do things more like what we want, everything would work out. And that's part of the problem. You got these two teams, more or less, that are just butting heads, and everybody's rooting for their side, whichever that happens to be. And nobody is saying, and by nobody, I mean in general, no one is saying, okay, this whole left, right, conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican thing, it's destroying us. We need to broaden democracy, bring other parties into the mix, because what you guys are doing is what has brought us where we're at. But I don't want this video to be me ranting about what's wrong, how it's only going to get worse, and what we have to deal with because of that. What I want this to be about is there is hope. There is, I don't know if you want to call it a light at the end of the tunnel, but in one respect, with the chaos and confusion and everything else that we're experiencing, it will shake up the system. And on the other side of that, things are going to be drastically different in the favor of the people who are most vulnerable, who suffer most. I believe there is precedent for this too. You've seen in invasions, and especially like, for example, the plague in Europe. You saw people dying across the spectrum, but what you saw were also a lot of peasants who had no chance in life ever of gaining any kind of any kind of upward mobility. That was it. You're a peasant. You get as much land as they're willing to let you till. You're getting as much food as they're willing to let you keep. That's your life. You have no choice in the matter. Now you see landowners die, peasants who never before had a chance of owning land, all of a sudden owning land. The thing is, when you've got a system that is so corrupt that all the little people, even put together as a unit, cannot buck the system, it's just too big, it's too corrupt, it's too powerful for them to ever even do anything to better their lot in life. The only chance, perhaps, out of that system is the chaos and confusion that comes when everything just crumbles. We'll see. That is definitely a possibility, though, and I think that's something that I think the way I view how things are going to shake out, I see it as the only possibility that will work in the long term, because all of this short-term thinking is what has brought us here. And if we can't change that, I think humanity will end. what we've got, the powers that be, they're like heroin addicts. It's always, how many resources can I extract for the most amount of money, whether it's human labor or minerals and metals, and it doesn't matter, oil, wood, whatever. How much monoculture crops can I grow at the expense of the topsoil just to make the most amount of money now? The hell with future generations. Let them figure it out. Well, we're getting very close to that, being the future generations that have to figure it out. So, what I propose, because this is what I am trying to practice, and it's hard, it takes a huge change of thinking, and it is just extremely hard, but I'm trying and being aware of the change I need to make, and at least starting is better than not even being aware and not bothering to start, even if I were aware, because it's too hard. I'm trying as much as possible to build mental fortitude, resilience, and to build a community that, as things get worse, we will watch each other's backs. And by a community, I'm looking at things, and so are the others, because they are like-minded, people who know stuff about communication, like using a ham radio, people who know about growing food. And I'm not talking about plowing a field and growing corn. I'm talking about planting foods in the most natural way possible, because this is going to be a huge part of the future too, I am afraid. Climate change is going to be so disruptive, we will have no choice whatsoever but to do everything we can to be as natural as possible and to pull carbon out of the atmosphere, which means a certain level of technology that we're going to have to know and utilize and maintain even as things are crumbling. So, getting in touch with and bringing people like that into the fold. We need that kind of knowledge. We need the people who are hands-on and can do that kind of thing. Jungle farming, there are just literally a million videos out there about people who are reclaiming land out of scrubland, out of desert, out of just piss poor non-arable lands, or lands that are not supporting woodlands or forests, or, well, hell, look at what we're doing to the rainforest. Those things are going to be especially hard to reclaim because the topsoil in rainforests is so much less than the topsoil in deciduous forests, for example. But as the climate changes and extreme weather events become more prevalent, like we've seen with the droughts in the Midwest, like we've seen with the fires out west, uh, like we've seen in Texas last winter, things are just going to become, given what we've been used to weather-wise, extreme and insane. And we're going to have to figure out, how do we bring nature back to these places that we've literally destroyed. But without getting into a lot of specifics, the two things that to me are the most important are building up a level of resilience and finding a community and expanding that community. And I already mentioned, like, communication and getting back to nature. And I'm not talking about any kind of woo-woo hippie stuff, anything like that. I'm talking about, we need air to breathe, water to drink, and food to eat. And the air, water, and food that we've got nowadays is actually being destroyed by this kind of capitalism that we have, which is, again, not capitalism. I call it kafoa eswek. But this brand of capitalism that we practice, it is destroying us, and it's going to destroy the capitalists too. And some of them, at least, are smart enough to see this, and yet they're not trying to change it. Like I said, they're like heroin addicts. The heroin addict knows that he's destroying his life with that drug, but the pain of quitting is so much worse than the pain of continuing to do the drug. He will not quit and go through that pain to get to the other side. That's the kind of thing we are practicing now. But again, I mentioned communication. I mentioned getting back to nature, knowing how to plant stuff, having a variety of crops at hand when TSH, having people with medical knowledge as systems crash. we're going to start to lose industry. Hospitals are going to, like everything else, start to crumble. The level of medical care that we can provide is going to go down. And the fact of the matter is, if things get bad enough, everybody who's got any sense is going to want to get away from the cities and even the suburbs. You're going to want to be out in the country. The farther, the better. And if it comes down to that, you're going to need to know all the things that you took for granted when you were in the cities because they were providing them. So all the different things that you are going to absolutely need, like how do we pull water out of the atmosphere if we find ourselves in a desert environment? Uh, if we find ourselves in an environment where the water is putrid, how do we clarify it? How do we make it potable? Food, you know, it's going to come down to, in my opinion, within 40, 75 years at the outside, we're going to be back to the Iron Age. I know that sounds extreme, but things are getting bad. It's going to escalate. It's going to get worse faster. And there is something that is very important to consider here. We have put a lot of EDCs, endocrine disrupting chemicals, into the environment. Those are disrupting our ability to reproduce. We're already almost leveling out reproduction wise just with people making the choice not to have as many children. But when you've already got that as a choice and you can't have children because your reproductive system is messed up, those two things together, population's going to start to fall. Now, on the one hand, that's great for the environment. We almost solely are the ones who are destroying the environments that all life forms, including us, rely on to live. The bad part about that, though, is our capitalist system, the Kafoa we're practicing, it is incumbent that we always have more younger people entering the workforce. It's a Ponzi scheme, and if we don't continually have more people at the bottom, the whole scheme crumbles like every Ponzi scheme does. And that's what we're looking at. We already have people opting out of the system because they're tired basically of just working their asses off, not being compensated for it, and seeing these other people who are not geniuses, are not working their asses off, are not these great ubermensch super beings who deserve billions and billions and billions of dollars and yet are making billions and billions and billions of dollars. We all see this. We all know it's wrong. There's little we can do about it, especially with this corrupt political system that is part and parcel of this Kafoa SWEC. The system's going to crumble. Our industry, the bottom is just going to fall out. And again, it's not going to be instantaneous. You wake up one morning and everything's on fire and has gone to hell. It's just going to get continually worse, but we're already starting to see it. We're already starting to see it in politics. I mean, for God's sakes, the Capitol got invaded by domestic terrorists, and they can do very little about it except for arresting all of the people who are lowest, except for arresting all the people who are lowest on the totem pole, and just making show trials out of that whole thing. But the people who are highest, the Congress people, the people in the executive branch who fomented this, are going to go largely unscathed. I am not here to rant about that and say justice must prevail. I'm just saying we see this happening. It is an indicator of where we are going. This is only going to get worse. We saw a president who was impeached twice but couldn't get removed from office. And you're of one of two minds about that, largely. You think it's a sham that he was impeached twice, but they couldn't remove him. Or you think it's a sham that he was impeached twice. He was the greatest president ever. How could they do that to him? Either way, we're talking about people on either end of the spectrum who are just glaring at the other end of the spectrum. Very little in between. And it's just part of the craziness we're experiencing. And I don't see any of this stuff being resolved to a great enough extent that we're going to do anything significant in terms of figuring out all the other problems. Uh, you want to make America great again? Get all the chaos and confusion out of our system, so the people who are the greatest innovators, who are the ones who help each other out, allow the middle class to rebuild and expand. All these things that just cannot happen when we're totally consumed with all this chaos and confusion, which is only getting worse. I know this sounds very much doom and gloom, but be aware of the fact that even if we don't go back to the Iron Age, maybe we only go back to the Industrial Age. Maybe our technology just kind of stagnates because we can't really move forward with all this craziness going on. Whatever it happens to be, even if we went back to the Iron Age, remember, we were living in the Iron Age for centuries. People thrived in the Iron Age. Not everybody, of course. It's never been everybody. It's always been top heavy, unfortunately. And I should say that the other way around. It's always been bottom heavy. The people who have suffered the most have always been the masses, where a few have had it good. That's one of the things we can change in the near future as things begin to crumble, because money's not going to matter if the dollar fails, which it looks like it will. And even if the dollar doesn't fail, if the economy just totally takes a plunge, doesn't matter how much money you have. If a loaf of bread costs $1 million, it doesn't matter if you're a billionaire. Your money's going to be spent just buying the stuff that we normal people would be paying comparatively $1 or $2 for, and now we're going to have to go out into the wilderness to get it because we can't afford to shop in a store. How long is it going to be before the billionaires are broke when the system completely breaks down? So this could be the great reset that they're talking about. This is not exactly how I wanted this video to turn out, but my viewpoint on the whole matter anymore is I'm just making these. Obviously, they are not very well technologically enhanced, whatever the word you want to use. My thing is, there are things I need to say. I want to get these videos out there. I'm not spending a lot of time or wasting any bandwidth on trying to clean these up, make them real pretty, say exactly what I want to say because I've spent oodles of time thinking about it. I'm not trying to become a YouTuber. Let me just put it that way. So yeah, these are not going to look technically sophisticated. I just want to get my thoughts down and out because I want to find other people like me who want to do the same thing. And let me just give you one example of what things were like and what they're going to be like in the very near future, in my opinion. 2020, when the whole idiocy came upon us because of the sickness, whatever you want to call it. I'm afraid to call it anything specifically because I've heard about other people being demonetized or this, that, and the other on YouTube. But early 2020, when things started to get stupid, what did we see people doing? Fighting over toilet paper. My God. If a society just goes completely batshit crazy and has to fight over toilet paper because they are that insecure in their ability to either conserve what they have, or they hadn't thought it through and bought enough to begin with beforehand, and anybody that doesn't have a month's worth of toilet paper right now is batshit crazy. You've seen what it can be like. But for God's sakes, use rags, throw them away, clean them out. I mean, to become violent over something as stupid as toilet paper, imagine what it's going to be like when food starts to become scarce. You really should start thinking about this. And I'm not saying any of this stuff because I want people to panic and freak out. I'm saying this stuff because the more people who prepare, the more people who have any knowledge and any security in their ability to either go without or figure it out if it's something that's an absolute necessity. The more people we have like that, the less panic and hysteria it will be, and the greater it will be to get through whatever's coming down the pike, and for all of us to work together without this anger and division and neediness and fear and all of that other stuff that we seem to go through as humans whenever things start to get bad. The more people who can keep their head and work together and figure out whatever needs to be figured out, no matter how far we decline, the better off we will be, and the more people will find a way to thrive even with less stuff. That is what I'm looking for in a community. That is what I'm hoping for as a society. I have little hope for that as like a large scale percentage of the people in any of the societies, not just us here in the States. But the thing is, the more people we have who are taking this as a real possibility and doing something about it, the better off it will be for everybody. And let's face it, if things do get really harsh, the more people that have any level of preparedness and are willing to work together, the better off they will be at fending off the hysterical idiots who are going to be out there not knowing what to do but using violence to get whatever they think they need, because that's the way people are. So what I'm saying is, I'm trying to build up resilience and find a community and build and strengthen that. I would suggest you do the same. And the worst that could happen in terms of that is if things just continue on and nothing gets worse than it already is, you've still got more resilience and you've built a community. No harm in that. So I'm not trying to create panic or hysteria. I'm trying to create awareness. What I envision will almost certainly not come to pass. It may get worse, but it's probably not going to get worse in the way I envision it, or anybody else, except that one rare individual who can just figure out all the variables and see into the future and figure it all out. But who is that individual, and how many people are going to listen to him anyways? We don't know. I might be the one. It might turn out exactly the way I see it. Probably not, but it's definitely a possibility. I just want people to be aware. Things are going to change. They always do. So that means they either get better or they either get worse. It looks like things are going to get worse for a very long time before they get better. So I'm just asking you to prepare. And the best thing you can do is start here and find people close to you, geographically close to you, that are like-minded and are willing to start to build a community, because we may only have 20 years, and it might even be less than that. I just ask you to, at least now, with this video, at least consider it. That's all. Well, I thank you for watching, and if you didn't watch, well then, what's wrong with you, man? And remember, summer is coming. This one will be long. Gird your loins.